Good morning, good afternoon, and good night here on Monday, Football Monday on the SB Nation NFL show. Today is Monday, February 20th, 2023. This is the SB Nation NFL show. You can listen to us wherever you get your podcast, subscribe, leave a rating, write a review. You can also watch us on the SB Nation NFL YouTube channel. We have a lot to get to as the offseason rolls on. A lot's a little bit contextual here, but a reminder before we keep going that this show is brought to you by DraftKings. DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app today and use code SBNFL for a special offer when you sign up. That is code SBNFL only at DraftKings Sportsbook. My name is RJ Ochoa from SB Nation's Blog and the Boys, joined here by Pete Sweeney from SB Nation's Arrowhead of Pride and Jeremy Reisman from SB Nation's Pride of Detroit. Pete, I said good morning, good afternoon, and good night. I'll say I'm the morning. So are you the afternoon or the night here of this, as far as this tripod is concerned?
Yeah, I'm an afternoon man. Big afternoon man. I feel like that's when I thrive. I love lunch food. I'm the guy that's going to make a sandwich at home and crunch some chips in the middle of it, right? To enhance the sandwich.
I don't know if that was a shot at Jeremy or not, but Jeremy, that makes you the night owl of us all. You're somebody who spends a lot of nights out, right? Like you're at clubs, you're at places.
You could see it. You could see it.
You've got a closet full of leather jackets that you just wear. Strolling down the 313, right?
You're lucky that you got me today. Being President's Day, I figured we had the day off, so I was out till what? I don't know. You guys probably aren't even aware that there's a 3 a.m., but I certainly do know.
Jeremy is ready for Monday Fun Day pretty promptly at 11 a.m. That's when it's going to begin for him.
It's 11 a.m. Eastern. I don't know. I don't think you're in the Eastern time zone, Jeremy. Are you a Central man?
Yeah. No, I'm in Eastern. That
man. Sucks. Central for life. Central time zone is the best. Do you know what time it is, Pete? It's 10:10 Central, Pete. So it is 11 for Jeremy.
But now I'm adjusting. Now I'm saying that Jeremy's Monday Fun Day is actually beginning at noon his time.
Okay,
that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
All right.
Good morning. Good morning, RJ, by the way.
Good morning, good afternoon,
Happy
and good night,
President's Day.
as we said. Happy President's Day. Who's your favorite president, Pete?
Nixon. Has to be.
Okay. Jeremy, do you have a favorite commander-in-chief?
I don't, but shout out Jimmy Carter.
I like someone who does anything that they need to win, right? And that's Nixon. I mean, the true heel.
I don't really have a favorite. I really have a lot of questions. Is the Resolute desk full of secrets and maps? That's what I was told by Nicolas Cage, and I wouldn't doubt Nicolas Cage in that sense. We have I said not a lot. That's kind of the truth. The Super Bowl ended a week and change ago. Pete Sweeney, have you calmed down from the parade down Broad Street or 10th Street or whatever it's called in the KCMO?
Union Station. It heads to Union Station.
It's all the same. It's street. It's got lights. Yeah.
Anyway, that was fun. Yeah, it was a fun day. Now we're heading into the off season. I usually do the week after the Chiefs are done, and then I take the next week off. So this is the only part of the week that I'm working this entire week. This morning, and then I'll turn the reins over to my deputy just to get some R&R after the season.
Well, you did do some work late Sunday night after I watched the golf tournament. That's this time of year. I get to watch a lot more golf than usual, obviously. Mm-hmm. I slacked you two and Steven and said, okay, let's talk about this tomorrow on the show. And I said, you guys should come up with some topics. I had some in mind. And Pete, you did. You came to school prepared with the homework in tow.
Jeremy was out. Jeremy was out.
I was out.
The dog ate yours.
Party.
Okay, so we basically, Pete and I made up 5 things each that we thought would be interesting to talk about. So we have a list of 10. I don't know that we'll get to all of them. But Jeremy, since you don't have one, you get to start first. So I'll buy you 10, 15 seconds to look through mine and Pete's list. We just kind of picked random off-season things that we have some high, low, medium, middle level of interest in. So where do you want to start? Spin the wheel, Jeremy.
Yeah, I mean, listen, if my 3 or 4 appearances on the show haven't been obvious yet, I'm very self-serving and like to talk about Lions-related things. So the most tangentially related thing to the Lions is Aaron Rodgers getting traded. So I want to start there.
Okay. I think that is from my list.
It is.
We had some kind of common, like Venn diagram-y sort of ones Pete and I did. My first one was, what if Aaron Rodgers doesn't actually command a huge draft haul? That was kind of the general question I approached this with. We're all sort of assuming like, here he comes. Aaron Rodgers is going to the Jets are going to pay. The Raiders are going to pay. Somebody's going to pay. What if nobody wants to pay, Pete Sweeney? What if it's like, look at Russ. Like Russell Wilson is kind of a cautionary tale. Not everything necessarily works out. Plus, I'm not going to be the 4 millionth person to make a darkness retreat joke.
Yes.
But I mean, like there is some, I think reservation when it comes to wanting Aaron Rodgers on your football team these days.
Well, I think the truth of the matter is, I just don't think, and I finally think this is real. I don't think that Green Bay wants him anymore. I think they're ready to once again move on from this quarterback at the end of his career that isn't sure if he wants to keep going or stay with the team or go elsewhere or yada yada. And so, your question is, what happens if Aaron Rodgers doesn't actually command a huge draft haul? Well, the Packers are going to have to just take whatever is the value that is out there. I just think that this chapter for me and what I can tell is over. Like Brett Favre, his predecessor, I think that Aaron Rodgers will play for a different team, if not two, here at the end of his career. And I can't wait for 2041 when Jordan Love is posturing and we find out which veteran team he plays for.
Jeremy, do you recall what the Jets traded for Brett Favre?
No, I
Jet
don't.
Favre.
I don't know how that was never a thing. It was a conditional.
It was in New York. I know that.
It was a conditional pick, obviously, at the time, and it became a 3rd round pick. Jeremy, do you think? I personally think that Aaron kind of wants to go for a haul. You know what I mean? I think that's an important sequence of the story. I think it would be embarrassing for Aaron Rodgers to go for a conditional pick that winds up becoming a 3rd rounder.
Yeah, I mean he's a guy that certainly likes the smell of his own farts, for lack of better
wow.
terms.
This guy really was out till midnight.
But I do find it interesting. I am curious what the kind of market is going to be, because we have seen a lot of these quarterbacks on the move as of late, but I'm not sure if we've seen one this close to the end of their career get traded, and someone with as much uncertainty from 1 year to the next as Aaron Rodgers provides. And listen, I think a lot of times, especially with a guy like Tom Brady, when he changed venues, it was all about like bringing in an entire new culture and a positive energy and this hardworking attitude with him. I'm not sure that you can guarantee that there's going to be a great culture fit for what Aaron Rodgers brings, because if you read some of the reports, Bob McGinn put out something interesting late last week talking about how Aaron Rodgers showed up not in shape in training camp and skipped OTAs when he had a set of new wide receivers that he probably could have used more time with. I'm not sure he slips in and fits right in with a new culture. And so it's a big risk. And how much are you willing to bet on the future for 1, maybe 2 years of Aaron Rodgers versus, Matthew Stafford, you're getting 2 or 3 years, hopefully 4, maybe beyond that. You were hoping for a lot more of Russell Wilson, and maybe you eventually will. It's just not, I don't think this is a multiple 1st round picks type of situation with Aaron Rodgers, even though the type of teams that are going to be trading for him are looking for maybe a 1 or 2 window to compete for a Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't feel. It feels like we want it to be something, but it isn't. It feels like this is really late to the party. Pete, would it not be somewhat anticlimactic if Aaron Rodgers doesn't get traded? If he just retires? I saw, by the way, Mark Schofield ranked possible places for Rodgers to wind up this offseason over at SB Nation, and number 7, it was a list of 7. Number 7 was a podcast, at Spotify. If he retires, he's definitely gonna launch his own podcast.
I suppose it would be anticlimactic, but I do think it's one of these NFL storylines similar to the year-long Dak contract thing. No offense, RJ. It just reminds me of that, where I think we're all just ready for some sort of resolution so maybe we can talk about other things this offseason. However, I think that being said, we all know what's going to happen here. He's going to wait for the last possible moment to make that kind of decision, and we will talk about it until then. And that's something we can look forward to this offseason.
Okay, well said. That was a good starting point, Jeremy. So you weren't prepared, but you did land on your feet very quickly. I will go next, and Pete, I will pull from your list. I loved this. I just realized that you titled these Big Sweeney's questions.
Yeah. Big swings, big questions.
All right. Well, it doesn't say big swings, big questions. It says big swings questions. So the questions are smaller than you thought. Number one, which head coach has the shortest tenure of the new head coaches? Obviously, you didn't specify that, but you've got Jonathan Gannon, Arizona Cardinals, Sean Payton, Denver Broncos, Frank Reich, and the Carolina Panthers. That's kind of being praised as the best one. I don't know why. D'Amico Ryans and the Houston Texans, and Shane Steichen with the Indianapolis Colts. Jeremy, I put it to you. Which one of these has the shortest tenure? You don't have to tell us how long the tenure is, but which one is the shortest and why?
Man, I feel like the chic pick right now is Jonathan Gannon, right? He's kind of getting made fun of for
Kendall Roy,
for how he looks and all that sort of and his press conference and stuff. And as someone who came from a very goofy introductory press conference, I think a lot of that stuff is overblown. But at the same time, I don't know. The Cardinals have gone through a lot of head coaches very quickly. Gannon didn't exactly come off a great Super Bowl contention, but I guess, there was a fight for the Eagles to keep him. If I read the report right this morning, the Eagles try to make one last pitch for him to stay as defensive coordinator, and maybe even paying him more than he's getting paid in Arizona. So the Eagles did obviously covet him a lot, and they had a really good defense up until the Super Bowl. But another self-serving point I want to make is that I know a team that hired a defensive coordinator who got smacked in the Super Bowl, and his reign lasted 2.5 years in Detroit and Matt Patricia. So I think
Super Bowl the Eagles were involved in, by the way.
That's true. Yeah. Connections all about. So I think I'll stick with Jonathan Gannon. I actually like most of the rest of the hires here. So I think Gannon is the one questionable one that I'm still kind of scratching my head over.
You know who else had a really goofy press conference and was made fun of quite a bit was Nick Sirianni. He was. True. If you remember that initial press conference, they were saying, what did the Philadelphia Eagles do? And now that he's beloved in Philly and was a coach of the year candidate, and rightfully so. I like the Gannon pick. I'm not going to do the same thing. I'll go on the other side of this and go to Shane Steichen in Indianapolis. And I just think he is someone that really made Jalen Hurts work. And I think that is a very, very, very talented quarterback. I don't know what Indianapolis wants to do at that position. Plus, they have an owner who is willing to, if it's not working after, let's say, year 2, which if I'm trying to estimate here, I feel like the other guys probably get at least to year 3. I could see him just quickly pulling the plug. He just seems more apt than other owners to bail out. And so I'm going to go in Indianapolis with this one, RJ.
I think you guys are both great people, but really wrong here. I don't think you're playing the game properly, at least the way that Big Sween laid it out. Which head coach has the shortest tenure? That's not which one is fired first. That's not which one, whatever. It's what is the shortest tenure. Which of these 5 coaches has already quit on their team before? There's only one. There's only literally one. And which situation from a roster standpoint is the most toxic? That is arguable. You can certainly argue that Houston has a toxic situation. Arizona, Kyler Murray, not exactly like flowers and fun. I would say the most stable one is probably Carolina. Maybe that's why people are leaning on Frank Reich. And Indianapolis does have the Jim Irsay factor, to your point, Pete. But I do think that Indianapolis and Arizona are under some pressure to kind of stabilize their coaching situation. I think people look at those as kind of jokes. I really think that David Tepper wants Carolina to have some stability long term, and Houston has been Houston for a while. So could we not see the Denver situation just not going well, and then in a year and a half, Sean Payton be like, you know what, this sucks. My morning runs are so much more difficult than this high altitude. I got to get out of here. My nose is bleeding all the time. I could totally see Sean Payton and the Broncos. What have the Broncos done since signing Peyton Manning that has been a move that we respect as football fans?
I get the only reason that I would push back on that is because I think, and I don't know for sure here, I think in going with Peyton, you're now picking Peyton over Wilson. Not to say that they're going to move on from Wilson next year, but I think if Wilson still continues to work, I think despite the 5-year contract, I think they're leaning into Peyton being able to figure it out with Wilson or his next pick. I think they're in a situation where they say, if anyone can do it, it's Sean Payton. If he can't, let's let him pick the next quarterback. That's where I would push back. But I think you're right. I think if you're looking for pure, a possibly volatile situation, you're probably right. Of the 5, it does seem like Denver is the most apt to be that.
Jeremy, I like the Broncos. Like, I think we all kind of have a team in the opposite conference that we kind of like think is cool, right? Like,
Yeah.
I think Pete's is kind of the Eagles right now. He's been a
The
Seahawks
Birds.
guy in the past. Right now, the Bills kind of hold my heart in the AFC, but for a while it was the Broncos. But if I'm being super honest, like the two greatest things they've done over the last decade and change, they really kind of had nothing to do with. Like, they drafted Von Miller, awesome, great, like super difficult job that was. And they used John Elway's like legacy to cash in on Peyton Manning when a lot of other teams like didn't even want him, right? Like Houston didn't want him. He wanted to go there. I mean, there were all sorts of like stories at the time, but like everything they have done has been really lame and really bad and really poorly run. Like why do we believe in the Broncos? Like because there's some legacy NFL franchise? Like the Broncos kind of stink.
I mean, they do, but I think part of it is obscured by the fact that their offense has just been so terrible that most people kind of overlook that their defense is still pretty good. I don't think they have a bunch of like top tier name kind of guys, but they were 10th in DVOA last year, and for a while, I mean, they were in a lot of games despite having one of the worst and least watchable offenses in the league. So, obviously, offense runs this league, and offense is a little more stable year to year. But I think defensively, they have more than a foundation that they can build off of, and if they can even, I don't know, get to the midway point on their offense and not be a top 10 team, I think they can win some games. And stave off a firing or a quitting or anything like that. But you're right, like there hasn't been a lot of like head turning moves. This isn't a team full of Pro Bowlers and all pros, and they deserve a lot of criticism for all that.
I would also offer my last point here. If you look at the other options, and you both, Pete, you picked Shane Steichen, Jeremy, you picked Jonathan Gannon. I know that the NFC West has the 49ers we respect and the Rams, who, Jeremy, you have to have a love for because of Matthew Stafford. But like those divisions aren't the mountain that the AFC West is. And certainly Frank Reich and the NFC South, very, easy kind of road there. D'Amico Ryan's obviously also in the AFC South. Like the least or the most difficult path, belongs to Sean Payton and the Denver Broncos, especially if Aaron Rodgers does wind up on the Raiders, like a lot of people think might be the case. So really, RJ had the best answer is my grading of that. Pete, pick a question, any question. The floor is yours.
All right. I think this is one we've been wondering for a while. And
if you pick one of yours, it will be very narcissistic, by the way.
Will Lamar Jackson ever play another snap for the Baltimore Ravens?
So not only are you picking one of yours, you're literally going in order. I picked your first one. You're picking your second one.
Yeah, I think it's on all our minds, and I think we do wonder. Okay, is this situation one that can get so bad that he ends up signing with another team? What do you think,
Jeremy?
I'm not buying it. The Ravens have used pretty uncoded language that they unequivocally want him back, and listen, that doesn't mean it's not going to happen. That doesn't mean the trade's not going to happen. We've seen that happen all the time, but they've been pretty consistent going years back that Lamar Jackson is their guy. They want to build the team around him, and they continue to be fully invested in him. And obviously, money talks more than words, and they haven't ponied up. And, they've had plenty of time leading up to this offseason to get it done. But they ultimately have the biggest bargaining chip, which is the franchise tag. And if they franchise tag him, then that's pretty much it. I don't think at this point, considering everything they've said, that they would franchise him and then trade him. I think they would force him to play. And I don't know if Lamar Jackson is the type of guy that would be willing to bet on himself and sitting out a full year. So I really think it's a lot of drama, no doubt. And it is curious that they haven't been able to get something done by now. But I think with that bargaining chip of the franchise tag, I think Lamar isn't going anywhere.
Pete, you brought up the Dak Prescott situation from now 2 years ago, which was an incredibly long year of my life. And that was, headline news every day. I mean, that's just kind of the
saga. A saga,
right. Well, but like that was never as contentious as this was. Like, I mean, Lamar, I don't want to say held out. I mean, the final games of the season. But I mean, I think we all had questions whether or not they could play. He obviously didn't play in the playoffs, and it made sense, right? Like, why risk himself financially? To be fair, Dak did play on the franchise tag in that 2020 season. He broke his ankle, as everybody remembers, and he still got the proverbial bag. And there was never as much I don't want to call it bad blood here, but there was a lot more smoothness throughout the process. Granted, I was very close to that and am not as close to this situation, but I agree with Jeremy. Like, I think it's impossible that Lamar is playing anywhere but Baltimore this coming season. Like, I think that they will at the very least ride it out. I mean, maybe he doesn't play at all this season, so maybe you wind up being right. But that's a lot of money to turn down, the franchise tag. And that's why we've seen other quarterbacks play on it. Like, the franchise tag has become a thing that nobody's afraid of anymore.
This injury thing, though, to me, leads me at the end of the year, leads me to believe maybe there isn't as much communication and good communication between the team and player as we would have liked. It just seemed like John Harbaugh had no idea what was going on, what was going through Lamar's head. I got the vibe, and no one ever said this directly, so it's just me, outsider, looking at the situation. I got the vibe they wanted him back working, trying to push through the injury. It seemed like he was not willing to do that. And I just think, okay, and I believe Lamar. I mean, I think he was actually hurt. I think he was watching out for himself. But I think if he's willing to handle that part of it last year as he did, who's to say if the team tags him, he just doesn't show up to work? And then at that point, do you just sit there for a year in a Carson Palmer type of situation? Do you try to move him? I just think it can get complicated depending on how stubborn Lamar wants to be, and we don't really have the answer to that.
Do you know the tag value for quarterbacks this season, Pete?
A couple hundred.
It is. It's $32.5 million. That's a lot of money to like not show up for that. That was not Carson Palmer's plight or issue, situation, whatever you want to call it. Like, so that's a lot of money for Lamar to turn down. And so I think we're finally at a point where the Deshaun Watson contract is going to impact things. Like I don't know, Jeremy, like that contract has been brought up more with Lamar's negotiations than it has been for almost anybody else. And this is an offseason where Jalen Hurts is probably going to get an extension. We'll see if Justin Herbert gets one. I don't know if the Dolphins are going to offer an extension to Tua. Obviously, Joe Burrow is another name to watch, and that's within the division. Like, I mean, but none of them have an MVP. Like, Lamar has a very important kind of bartering chip here.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the fully guaranteed stuff is tough with a guy like Lamar, who's missed a lot of time over the past 2 years, right? That's always the biggest concern with these fully guaranteed contracts in football, and why maybe you don't see it in football as much as other sports is because of the injury situation. And when you're talking about a quarterback contract on top of that, which is going to be, upwards of 50 plus a year, that's a lot of money to be spending on a guy who might not be playing. And so I don't know. I think the most realistic solution is what we were just talking about. I really think it's going to be that franchise tag. And I don't know, Lamar, I think Lamar was looking out for his health, like Pete was saying. And, if he's fully healthy, I think the best move for him is to play on that franchise contract, because you'll be unscathed. You won't get injured if you don't play on it. But I think it's a bad look. I think it's a bad, it furthers bad blood within the organization and probably makes an extension or whatever even trickier next offseason in a situation that already has way too much drama.
And to the Dak Prescott point, you can play on it, literally have a season-ending injury, and still get a massive contract the following offseason. So Pete, Jeremy, and I thought your topic was stupid.
There's also an angle too where the owners have gotten together, right? And this is just something I think could be a possibility. And they said, that was a mistake. We can't make that a precedent that is set now. And in a way, the owners of the Ravens can't do it because there's this agreement between the owners that we need to get back to like not offering someone a 5-year fully guaranteed contract. And it's a very complicated situation with bigger implications, I think, for the long haul of the NFL. But I think you guys are right. I think we might be a year away from that if they tag him and he just plays. So
you wasted our time. Awesome. Okay, Jeremy, let's pick another question. What do you got?
Okay. I feel like you're feeling not giving you enough attention. So we'll go back to one of your questions.
Yeah.
What team will be most likely to go from highly talked about / cared about to insignificant, like the Colts did last year?
I loved this question, obviously. So just to set up the way I was thinking of it, the Colts a year ago was like, well, they traded for Matt Ryan. I thought that was so stupid. I never bought in. It was so dumb. It never made any sense whatsoever. They got all sorts of national love, blah, 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 blah. To be clear, we're talking about teams that enter the stratosphere of national discussion, not that like always live there. So like the Cowboys, can't fall out of the picture. The Niners, the Eagles, like the Chiefs. There are brands that are just going to live in that space forever. So we're not looking. We're looking for the floaters. So what floater falls out?
I was going to say this was the Chiefs last year. This was everyone's popular pick. The Chiefs were going to be insignificant after the year. And so I know exactly how to answer this question. I know that no one's going to pick the Chiefs now in this, like everybody did last year. But I think One team that we see fall out is the Vikings. As much as I want to support the team, and I thought they were legit, I mean, there's just too many signs that they were not legitimate. And I think it's probably a team that goes from winning all these games by a close margin to back to the means. And Jeremy, this is great that you're here, because I think a huge part of that is going to be the 2 losses they're going to have against these surging Detroit Lions. And I think you really see maybe the Vikings fall off, whereas the Lions emerge here.
I'm happy you said that, because part of me, when I picked this question, thought that maybe the Lions would be one of your guys' selections, because they are going to be a hot team this offseason. They are going to be a team that I think
they're
a lot of people are going to circle
more in the conversation. Like, that's the thing.
Right.
Like, they can't fall out at this point. Like, their fallout would be a year from now is the spirit of the question, I guess.
Right. Well, yeah, I guess the concern is would the Lions live up to the hype that they're going to get this offseason. And given this franchise's history, I think there are a lot of Lions fans that are concerned about all the attention they're getting. But I think I'm going. Let's go back to Carolina, because they're a team that, like you said, they're a team that's getting a lot of praise for their coaching hires.
Frank Reich. Yeah,
I don't hate Frank Reich. I actually think most of the coaching hires are good, and again, part of that is self-serving because they've picked off a couple Lions guys. But I think it's going to take time there. I don't think it's going to turn around in a hurry. They obviously have to get their quarterback situation figured out. But I think they're going to go into this offseason with a lot of hype. They finished 7-10. They were a decent team. They weren't horrible. They weren't, and they're going to have a top 10 pick. So I think there's going to be plenty of hype. I just think it's going to take some time for them to really adjust to the new coaching staff, to get a quarterback in place. And I think people are just going to expect too quick of a turnaround for a team that is hitting a little bit of a reset button more than maybe it appears on the cover.
Tough day for Frank Reich. Pete said he hates him, and Jeremy, you picked him to fall out of the conversation for the second year in a row.
I was saying that Jeremy hates him. Let's be clear here.
I'm just saying, like,
you could tell.
The question that I wrote literally said, like the Colts last year. Obviously, those were Frank Reich's Colts. And so now, Jeremy, you have picked Frank Reich's Panthers. So, again, just a tough time for him. But he does have the long contract now, so everything's going to, I guess, work out for him. My answer is a little bit different, but I'm a little bit more bold than the two of you, obviously, because I came up with the best questions of the three of us, although you were disqualified in that sense. Jeremy, my answer is the Miami Dolphins. I think the Mike McDaniel stuff is going to cool off. Like, I think the interest was there at the very beginning, but I think it's now like, okay, now you're just an NFL coach. Like, now, you know what I mean? Now we see, like, is it going to snow again in Buffalo? We're going to get that same story, like, you know, when you go back up there this year, like, what's going on with Tua? And I hope Tua's all right, obviously, but, like, they just, like, the interesting parts of who they were as a football team aren't changing, and I don't think are going to sustain themselves. Like, okay, cool, you got Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but, like, Miami's going to be the team a year from now that is a quarterback away. Like the way people are talking about the Jets right now or whoever, or the Broncos a year ago, like the Dolphins are going to be that team next year whenever they do finally move on from Tua. Is that fair, Pete?
Well, I think the sub question is, will they go and get a quarterback? And I think if they are a quarterback away, if they can be bold and identify that, I think they win a lot more games if they have a Jimmy G or a Derek Carr on the roster, for example. A little sub fin question there. Will they bring in a quarterback?
On the subject of that, I'm going to go with one of Pete's questions. That was a great selection, Jeremy. So a million points to you. I like this question specifically. Actually, let's ask both of them because you listed the same teams. You said, will Derek Carr have a better record than the Raiders? And will Jimmy Garoppolo have a better record than the 49ers? This is a 2 for 1. Now, you listed 5 teams that they could end up with. So the game that we're going to play here is you have to put them on one of these 5 teams. Jeremy, I'll start with you. The 5 teams that Pete listed are the Bucs, Jets, your Panthers, the Saints, and the Titans. So if Derek Carr or Jimmy Garoppolo are on any one of these 5 teams specifically, could they have a better record than they had with their previous team, or than their previous team does without them?
I don't know if there's an answer for the 49ers. I'm a big Kyle Shanahan stan, so I don't think there's an answer that would make him make Jimmy Garoppolo have a better record than the 49ers.
We agree there. Pete, you agree, I presume?
Yes.
Okay, so then we don't the waste of a question. Okay, so this is just Derek Carr. So which of these 5 teams, Bucs, Jets, Panthers, Saints, Titans, Jeremy, could Derek Carr be on and have a better record than the Raiders in 2023? Even if the Raiders improve with, say, Aaron Rodgers, I guess that's part of the question as well.
I think it's every team but Carolina.
I was thinking the same thing. I'd probably throw the Bucs into that conversation too. Carolina and the Bucks, I would say no. Every other team, maybe.
Yeah. I just think because you go to Vegas, you have to take in the account where we don't know who their quarterback is going to be. And if it's a younger guy, sometimes that takes a year. So you're looking in the 500 range. And then you look at the defenses and surrounding pieces of the Bucks, Jets, Saints, and Titans. You feel pretty good about the other side of the football. And specifically in New York and Tampa, you have some weapons to work with as far as a passer. So I think I'm sticking with every team but the Panthers. I got the Raiders for like a 4-win season, and I think Derek Carr can get to 5 or 6 with any of these teams. Maybe even the Panthers too.
I think the answer is all of them, because do you two know who has the easiest strength of schedule right now? Which two teams have the two easiest?
The Carolina Panthers and Tampa Bay Bucks.
No, the New Orleans Saints and Atlanta Falcons. But you're very close, obviously. It's a good, like, next year will be a good time to be in the NFC South, and a lot of that is because you get to play the NFC South, obviously, so much. And so if Derek Carr is on the Bucks or the Panthers, then he's not on the Saints, right? Like, then the Saints kind of struck out, I think, is the presumption there. And so, yeah, like, to your point, Pete, like, you got to beat 4 wins with the Bucks or the Saints. Like, that's totally possible. The Bucks, beat that last year. I mean, like, and I know they had Tom Brady, but still. So in the Panthers, I think it's possible. Like Derek Carr, DJ Moore. I mean, like, by the way, I saw this morning, Robbie Anderson has changed his name on Instagram. Remember, he changed the spelling of Robbie. It's now Chosen, I guess is his name. So we'll see if that's like a sticking thing.
Legally changed, or like Ron Artest to Meta World Peace, or is this
not 100% certain? But that's just a situation to monitor, is my point. Jeremy, I kind of need Derek Carr on the Panthers now because I need them to be the Carr Atlanta Panthers. Has anybody made that joke yet?
No, I don't think so.
That graphic will exist, just so we're all clear. Like they'll just add an R.
I'm pretty high in the Jets. Could Jimmy G with the Jets have a better record than the 49ers?
No. The Jets are also in line for the team to fall out of the conversation, I think. Like, I think the Jets were a little bit Cinderella-y this past year.
Okay. I don't know.
But
just thinking out loud here.
But to go back to the Raiders, what if they do land Aaron Rodgers? How much does that change this entire conversation?
Well, yeah, it does.
Not a lot for me. I mean, like, I don't think they're a 4-win team, but like, Aaron Rodgers is on the Raiders. Are they a Super Bowl contender in your mind, Jeremy?
No, I don't think so.
Right.
But I think they're probably a potentially 9-10 win team still.
Do they win a game against the Chiefs if they have Aaron Rodgers?
No.
They've lost 15 in a row. The thing I think that RJ would be wondering is as soon as Aaron Rodgers goes wherever, it's, well, when do they play the Cowboys? Because he loves him a McCarthy-Rodgers bowl more than anything else. And you need another crack at that, don't you, RJ?
The Cowboys don't play the AFC West this year, but they do play the Chargers. The NFC, I know you know that.
Okay.
The NFC East and AFC West get the 17th game against one another. But the Raiders are the Giants.
Does that mean Chiefs and Eagles? It does, doesn't it? Chiefs and Eagles. Then
I would have assumed you knew this as the Arrowhead Pride guy. Especially given that those two teams met in the Super Bowl, a week or a day ago, that you probably would have known this, and that it's been talked about as the potential season opener. I mean, again, like, it's kind of a big, massive storyline in the NFL. Who knows?
By now, I've had 7 more months of working games at SB Nation than everybody else. So you know what? I'm sorry, I'm a little tired.
All right, Jeremy, you're going to pick another question, please, because that was obnoxious. Jeremy, please, one more time.
Let's go with this one. We'll feed this one right to Pete. Will the national media stop trying to pretend another AFC West team can catch the Chiefs?
No, they won't. They won't, because Rodgers will go to Vegas. LA will stay LA as a hot pick. I think people have learned their lesson against Denver, but you can bet your ass there is going to be at least 1 or 2 analysts that say Sean Payton is going to fix Russell Wilson. I think more people will pick the Chiefs than last year, which was almost none to win the division. It really was. I mean, that's true. And but I still think it's not gonna be across the board. Like this is the obvious pick to win the division. It's just the offseason fodder, and the Chargers always seem to be this team that seems primed to be ready to break out, and everyone ends up being wrong every year.
I'm curious for Jeremy's thoughts as well, obviously, but like, I disagree with you, Pete. I think the Chiefs, like, having won the second now, like, have entered the can't touch them territory for a lot of people.
You think so? Finally, okay.
Yeah, but like, and like, I know it was 3 years ago. What a drought. But, 3 years ago, the Chiefs were on top of the world. Like, they were the gold standard, and so, like, that is only exacerbated in having won a second and having beaten, I think the Eagles of 2022 were better than the Niners of 2019. And so, like, it was a really impressive performance. Like, I do think the crowning has happened. So I do think that people will chill out on this, especially because every other team really did just disappoint. Like, Jeremy, to me, that's a factor, is that, like, a year ago was the offseason of everyone loading up to catch the Chiefs, and everybody not only didn't, but like failed spectacularly.
Yeah, I mean, we've also talked in the past 2 weeks about calling the Chiefs a dynasty, right? And I don't think it's just limited to us starting that conversation.
Calling them that, and now he's saying that like people are going to doubt them.
I think people finally recognize and I shouldn't say people finally recognize, but the national media in general are recognizing the Chiefs for the good franchise that they are, and yeah, there's just too many moving parts, I think, in the AFC West for each other team for me to believe that everything's going to click next year. I think maybe, the Chargers will eventually get something figured out with Justin Herbert and a new offensive coordinator there. I think maybe if Aaron Rodgers gets moved to the Raiders, that they at least become contenders, but probably not, the leaders. Go ahead.
No, I think we kind of were all fooled for a year with what LA did and how they were essentially, and this is a huge outlier, just able to buy a Super Bowl title. And I think when we saw teams loading up in the AFC West, mostly through free agency, there was a trade involved. I think there was an assumption, well, man, the Rams added all these pieces and they were suddenly relevant. This can happen. It's like that happening is so rare. And you saw what happened to the Rams after that. They fell off, and now, they're trying to figure out their future. And I think maybe you guys are right in the sense that the Chiefs have built really well through the draft while bringing in selective free agents, and that has led to their success. And so maybe catching the Chiefs is more of a 3-year plan than it is a 1-year plan.
Right.
That I think we saw last year. And so maybe there is that thought process. I wonder, I think when these division picks come up, enough time will pass. There'll be enough splashy moves that people will start to convince themselves, hey, you guys might be right, but I've been waiting for that for about 5 years now, and every year it seems to be the case.
I also disagree with you, Pete, because this is the offseason that Justin Herbert gets paid, and that changes people's perception of a quarterback a lot, right? Like, now it's like, well, now you're the guy. Now you're no longer the wonderkind. You know what I mean? Like, now you have to carry the team.
That's right. What? I know that you're not a Herbert guy, and there are no more excuses for him.
I am a big fan of Justin Herbert. I think it's stupid how people act like he is the greatest quarterback of all time. Like, he can be a very good quarterback without being like the greatest thing that we have ever seen in the history of the world. But that is just, those are my 2 cents.
Would you go as far as to say since sliced bread on that, or no?
No, I'm not a big fan of like the way bread is sliced sometimes. Like, how have we can send robots to Mars, but we can't like eliminate the butt slice that we have to have? Like, how's that possible? You know what I mean? Like, we have the technology.
Nothing like bacon, egg, and cheese.
All right, Pete, pick a question. Pick a question that we haven't touched on. I'm sure it will be one of yours.
All right. Not necessarily.
We've touched on
receivers,
4 of your 5, by the way.
Which of the following receivers is most likely wearing another jersey week 1? Keenan Allen, Gabe Davis, T. Higgins, Jerry Jeudy, or Michael Pittman? What do you guys think?
I think that was way more energy than we have for this. But Jeremy, I don't really have a passionate take here.
This is a tricky one. I don't know.
Maybe Keenan. If I have to pick one, maybe he's the one. Like,
they're all under contract, so this is via trade
or cut. There are some rumors that the Chargers could move on from Keenan Allen.
They can cut that. That's true. That's another option.
I'm sorry, Jeremy. Pete interrupted you.
I was kind of relieved because I'm not really sure who I'd take. I think Keenan Allen probably makes the most sense because, if I'm not mistaken, he's probably the oldest of this bunch, and like you said, he's already been talked about as a cap casualty kind of guy. I would say it'd be the weirdest though. He's one of those guys that 10 years from now there'll be those dumb kind of Twitter engagement posts that says, "What does this logo remind you? Who's the first player that this logo reminds you of?" And Keenan Allen's kind of going to be that guy for the Chargers for me for a while. Yeah, but I don't know. I don't have a better answer than that, I don't think.
So if we look through the names, Gabe Davis is like a a favorite of Josh Allen. It feels like he's not going anywhere. I know that there's the conversation around T. Higgins, but I think it would be stupid of Cincinnati to move on. Michael Pittman, obviously the Colts are going to need somebody to kind of figure things out around offensively. But Jerry Jeudy was floated out as a trade piece, at the deadline. I know the Cowboys were one team that inquired to keep things, back to my world the way Jeremy does. And so like the Broncos, of all these teams, the Broncos need some assets for the future. So maybe they're like, you know what, this Jerry Jeudy thing was fun, but let's cash out here and let's start kind of stockpiling for the future because we've spent everything that we have on Russell Wilson and Sean Payton.
Jerry Jeudy is a player who even off the field is impassioned. I mean, we've seen him throw his helmet and stuff before. Kind of seems like he also could be that guy, RJ, that isn't just going to mesh with Sean Payton's style. So you got to ship him out of town. So I think Judy's in that mix. I like the point about Keenan Allen just because he's already been floated out as a cut candidate, which of these 5 guys makes him the most likely to be available. Again, that would be shocking. I would say look out for Gabe Davis. I know that he's a favorite of Josh Allen, but one of the post-season press conferences that Brandon Beane had, it's essentially was complaining about how much he had to pay Stephon Diggs and how the Bengals were able to get
the Cowboys.
Bengals were able to get all these players, Jamar Chase, because they were picking in the top 10. They had a lot of lean years. That is what he said. And so I don't know if he's going to be lining up to pay another wide receiver when, you do already have that contract for Stephon Diggs. So I think those 3 are the ones to watch. I guess if I had to pick, I would go Allen too. Again, most likely to be available.
Okay, let's wrap it up. I had 2 remaining questions. One of them was at what point will
rapid fire.
At what point will Odell Beckham Jr. find a new team? Just do we all think it's like the beginning of free agency? Do we think this goes into the summer? Like, I think it's probably like a month into free agency, personally.
Maybe he could also be one of those that like right in the middle of training camp. Like he doesn't want to do training camp. Like just do it then. I don't know.
Yeah, I've kind of like
poor answer.
I've kind of lost some steam here, but it does feel like the moment he like takes a visit, it'll like light itself up again. Don't you think, Pete?
Yeah, I think it seemed like all year he was going to be available for a playoff run, and maybe the medicals weren't there. So I think a team is going to want to really test him, and I don't know how apt he is going to be like, okay, yeah, I'll come in for a physical as OBJ, who won't even get off a freaking plane. So I don't know. I don't know about Odell Beckham Jr. I think training camp and getting to miss half of it feels right for this particular player.
Okay, this is the last question then of our 10. I can't believe we made it through. So I think, right? I don't think we missed any. But we did combine.
Just make sure all of mine got
one.
My guy.
They did.
Yeah.
So this was the one I actually liked the most, which is why I wanted to kind of end on it. And remember, be smart about this. What is your prediction for the sporting event over the offseason that comes closest to an NFL playoff game in terms of TV ratings? So you can't say the Oscars, you can't say The Last of Us, Jeremy. Like it is a sporting event, and they will all be dwarfed, obviously, by NFL playoff games from a ratings perspective. But what will come the closest? Effectively, the question is, what will be the highest rated sporting event of the NFL offseason that isn't an NFL game? That isn't the NFL draft, I guess is maybe the best way to put it. Pete, you go first. Jeremy deserves a chance to sit and think.
Well, over the weekend, I was watching a little golf, Genesis, and Tiger was back, and Tiger had more juice than I had the golf having more juice, I think, than it's had in a while. Which
wow, thank you, Pete, for letting us know that Tiger Woods has made golf popular. Nobody knew that before you just said it.
But listen, Rahm isn't bringing the ratings, is what I'm telling you. As great as he is,
there's an entire country following him, but that's sure no big deal, right? Okay.
Yeah, I mean, obviously you're sensitive because you're a golf truther. I'm just telling you that no one really cares about Rahm, but now Tiger's back involved, signing his glove and giving it to a girl. If he can get himself back into his shape, it makes that push. Friday, Saturday. In mid-April here in a couple months, that's Sunday for the Masters. There are going to be a lot of people watching.
I hate that you took my answer. That's so unfair.
I don't think it's going to be. But it's very conditional. Rahm and Scheffler, I'm sorry, RJ, are not going to make people watch the Masters. But if Tiger is wearing that Sunday red, he's got his son in the stands wearing the Sunday red, and man, they could have another Woods family moment.
Okay, so Master Sunday is Pete Sweeney's pick. Jeremy, what is yours?
I think I got to go with an NBA Finals game. I was kind of shocked last night about how many people were talking about the NBA All-Star game, especially considering coming off of an NFL Pro Bowl that I saw absolutely nobody talking about. NBA is very clearly, I think, the number 2 sport in America, at least. And I don't, I'm not a big basketball guy myself, so I couldn't tell you like the most ratings generating finals that you could see, but I think Golden State's kind of coming up on the up and up. I know they're currently out of the race, but if they can get back in there and Steph Curry has his face all plastered over NBA and ABC, like I think we got a good chance of that, given a pretty good ratings push.
Okay, so I was curious, and I didn't do this before I asked the question, but so the NBA Finals last year averaged 12.4 million viewers. NFL primetime playoff games averaged 9.57 million viewers. So we're talking about like an NFL playoff game can be beat. Masters Sunday last year had 9.45 million viewers, but to your point, Pete, it did not feature Tiger Woods. That does bump the needle a significant amount. I think between the two of you, Pete, your take or your guess, it has a prerequisite. If Tiger's not involved, I mean, you can't say like, well, that's no longer my answer. Like you're going with.
Well, then I'm going to shift to Roman Reigns versus Cody Rhodes in the Battle of the Immortals.
Are you actually shifting? And you're shifting to a pay-per-view event, which is also kind of a dumb strategy here, but it's up to you if you want to switch.
If Tiger doesn't make the cut, yeah, I conditionally switch to WrestleMania. Yeah.
You can't have a conditional. This isn't an Aaron Rodgers or Brett Favre to the Jets trade.
I just did. I mean, look, I did it.
I'm gonna go off the beaten path. I did not anticipate doing this. I'm gonna go with the national championship, college basketball's national championship. I think that's the play here. That's also a Monday night, so like that's generally kind of a big window. The finals games are somewhat contingent on what day of the week they fall. Jeremy and Jeremy, by the way, kind of cheated. Jeremy said, "I'll take an NBA finals game." Like he took an entire series. By the way, kind of a lame move if you're asking me. But I'll take the national championship.
Well, I'm just supposed to know how many games the NBA Finals going to go?
No, but you're supposed to have some. Like, you're supposed to do the calculated effort. Be like, well, I think it's going to be teams X and Y, and I think it'll go to 6. So I'll say Game 5. Like that's supposed to be the level of analysis we were looking for.
Jeremy conditionally has Game 7. If it's not Game 7, he's picking
Game 6,
a World Cup qualifier.
Yeah, if you had at least said like the closeout game, that would have been a little bit more, onion to hang. But you didn't. So. Both of you kind of failed.
You know what? I'll just change to the NFL Combine. How about that?
Ooh,
you can't. That's not allowed. But
run, Rich, run the Rich Eisen.
That's a good guess too. Okay. Steven, Serta, please come in and tell us what your favorite question was that anybody asked and what your favorite answer was to that particular question. Also, if you have a sporting event that you would like to offer that you think will have some high television ratings, we'd like to hear that as well.
Yeah, sporting event is obviously the XFL championship. I feel like it was totally overlooked in this whole conversation.
Right. It'll be played at the Alamo Dome.
It's going to do monster numbers. Just
Josh
wait.
Gordon had a touchdown and
Ben DiNucci
the weekend.
That's right.
I like Pete's wide receiver question because I feel like there could have been a lot more legwork put into the names that were on that list. But I enjoyed that after he danced around everything, he just went back to Jeremy's answer, which was it's obviously Keenan Allen because he's the oldest player on this list.
That's right. We worked.
That started off really rough, Steven, but man alive, you landed that plane. That was really well done.
There took some working backward in that question, but we got there thanks to some help from my friends. So thank you, Jeremy.
Wow. What a phenomenal episode. Congratulations to the third version of the XFL. Looking forward to the USFL. We also overlooked that league in this game. Shout out to Jeremy for picking the best questions continually throughout the process. Shout out Steven for wearing a backwards hat. Shout out to me for being the only member of this group not wearing glasses right now. So whatever.
What did
I say? Let's get out of here as Jeremy, you tell us something that you promise to eat for dinner one day this week. And it can't be Saturday. It has to be a weekday. Something you guarantee you will have for dinner Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday.
guarantee I'm making some big lasagna tonight. So I'm very
Holy
excited
crap.
about
You have any small details you want to like? You make it like homemade, the Stofers? Like,
Oh
what's
yeah,
going on
no.
here?
This it's my first time actually making homemade lasagna, so I'm very excited about it. I got all the this is the dirty little secret. I wasn't out partying last night. I was just gathering ingredients.
Do you have a sizable roll to dip that red sauce in? For the lasagna.
No.
You
Do I need that?
What?
You got to go get yourself a hoagie, because if there's
is there a salad or is it just lasagna? Like, what's the side situation?
I haven't even thought about that yet. I'm just going all lasagna. Just 3 servings of lasagna tonight.
I'm going to demand a picture in our Slack chat. I really want to see this thing. So
okay,
RJ, I'm going to eat meatloaf this week.
I don't care. Steven, actually, I'm curious for something you'll eat.
I got some fish that I got to do something with. I don't know what I'm gonna do with it yet, though.
Cod,
Some fish.
salmon, tilapia. I mean,
So we got
think it's
lasagna.
Maybe
we got lasagna. We got
ramen or something.
meatloaf,
like
and we got some fish. Lasagna, meatloaf, and some fish. So
I'll eat a burger, so we get like a beef. In there. You know what I mean? Like, make sure we're all bases are covered.
welcome down here to Texas, where we eat cheeseburgers.
All right, let's leave. Let's get out of here. That was